Salut tout le monde. I hope everyone's here. Thank you for being here in the least beautiful room where the beautiful view is outside. We've had a great 2 days here at Web Summit, seeing the remarkable innovators in Canada, in BC, in Vancouver. Thanking the organizers, thank the municipal and provincial counterparts and our federal counterparts. As you all know, yesterday we had a remarkable, Louis Tattoos here, one of our, have an MOU with his company, which is good. We could talk about Coveo, so please do, anyone. Great Canadian company that works all over the world. So there's lots of great innovators here. Pour tout le Canada avec les deux langues ici, so bienvenue au Louis aussi. Look, we had a great morning yesterday where we were at the TELUS headquarters with Darren Entwistle, who's for 26 years has led that company and grown it into a global company. And we announced that we will be moving forward towards an MOU with TELUS on their AI factory, 3 data center sites, 2 here in Vancouver, 1 in Kamloops. These are some of the most efficient, modern, and remarkable data centers in the world. They will have closed-loop water systems to make sure that the water use is limited, including looking at taking rainwater from BC Place right around the corner so they can use that water and recycle it. They are going to have heat reuse from the heat generated to make sure that they can provide heating for up to 150,000 plus homes. They'll create 1,000 jobs in construction and 525 jobs, high-paying operational jobs going forward. It will help the ecosystem here have sovereign compute. And, you know, the program enabling large-scale data centers done right, which we have criteria that we're assessing as we're building. There's other projects that we will be assessing to make sure that we have the infrastructure. This morning, we're building on that. And we announced 44 new projects of up to $66 million to support from our Compute Access Fund. That's a $300 million fund that we opened up to support SMEs, small, medium-sized enterprises, get access to compute. And there's a dual purpose to get access to Canadian compute as well. And we're subsidizing access. And these are remarkable, innovative companies. Some of them are in the room here. SenseNet, for example, that started back in 2018. And for those of you who are not Canadian, we have terrible wildfires issues. And in 2018, the air quality here in Vancouver was brutal. And a PhD student, Hamid, looked at that, and he was studying different parts of AI, and he thought, I should solve that with fire prevention. And he built an AI system that's used now in 11 countries, and they're innovating to give critical infrastructure and governments a better chance to detect where fires can crop up, including at what's called the smoldering phase, so early phase for resources. This is not what AI is, but what AI does. And of the 44 remarkable companies here in BC where we're making the first announcement on this, you will see drug discovery, you will see services in government. There's remarkable examples of how innovation and AI is used, and we're very proud to have the Compute Access Fund support that. It's a $300 million fund we opened in July, and I will say candidly, it is wildly oversubscribed, and the signal is that there is a huge demand for compute and innovation, and we will continue to build on it. So with that said, I will take questions. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I'm
Minister,
not choosing the question.
I'm going to moderate. So, hi, folks. I'm Peter with the Minister. We're going to do one question and one follow-up. If you can say your name and your organization, please go ahead. And we have microphones coming around. Let me give you this one for now.
Hey, Evan. Jim, good to see you. Congratulations.
Jim, how are you?
Great. Congratulations on being named the First Minister. Wonderful. Yesterday, we had our conference opened before you were on with Sigrid Jin, who is a token maxer, who's used 50 billion tokens until they put a cap on usage at Claude. We're seeing a huge demand in AI, and I interviewed Amory Levins, who says, we're not using our data centers efficiently as it is right now. There's 200 gigawatts of supply for AI, but we're not using it efficiently according to Amory. How do we square this circle? There's this huge demand. We need AI strategically, economically, and yet we're not using it as efficiently as we could be.
So, Jim, thanks for the question. First of all, you are seeing, Jim, a real transformation in how data centers are built, how existing power structures are used with using not peak periods, and how energy is distributed now. I'll give you an example. Hydro Ottawa has just deployed an AI to use their grid more efficiently. And this is literally one of the biggest uses of AI, is to use our grid more efficiently. The best new energy is the energy that we're not already using, and that is better than building more. So one of the great uses of AI, and we've seen many companies are using the energy we have, distributing it more efficiently. I will say that the investment in battery storage for storage on that is a very critical component. And you've seen some of the battery plants in southwestern Ontario that are not necessarily going to be providing batteries for electric cars as much, are getting into the battery storage business. So Jim's making a profound point here is this is an energy-hungry industry. There is a war for molecules out there. We have to be very, very prudent in how we're using our energy systems, how we're using our water, making sure ratepayers don't get paid. I will say the provincial regulators are the ones in charge of regulating power allocation. You've seen BC on the 400 megawatts that they've done, carefully allocating it to make sure it doesn't hit ratepayers. And one of the reasons why we've entered into this framework agreement to start pursuing this partnership with TELUS is because we believe that is the kind of model where it's the sustainable model, not just on the water use and the energy use and the energy reuse, but Jim, their model, and we're doing the diligence process on it, is to essentially use their molecules twice, right? Once on the data center side and once on the energy reuse side. This is a good model to pursue, and this is why we're pursuing that. So great question, Jim. Thank you, by the way.
John Katsir, Forbes. $300 million, impressive, but individual companies are spending $100 billion south of the border. How are you going to compete? And have a follow-up after that.
Sure. The how are you going to compete question, is not new to Canada. I mean, middle powers always have this question. How do you there's lots of ways to compete that are not just firepower in terms of compute. I mean, they're going to have more money. Some companies will have more money. Three things. One, talent, right? We have three of the best top AI national institutes. We're producing the best talent in the world. Waterloo's graduating more engineers than Stanford. Okay? Like, straight up. Okay? So we have best education system. We've just run a $1.7 billion talent attraction in our last budget to attract 1,000 of the top researchers and their labs to Canada, largest in the G7. So first, you got to have the base talent. Secondly, we have to build on our competitive advantages. We have the largest clean energy grid, lots of it unused, but to potential in the world. So this is a clean energy grid. So we got to build right. That's very important. That's why we have an electricity strategy, and this is why we are building on that. Now you got to get access to capital. That's a challenge in Canada. We're working on that. You're 100% right to identify that. Companies need access to capital from C to Series A, Series B, right up the chain. So access to capital. Access to compute for our SMEs. But there's lots of reasons why adoption rates in the United States, for example, deep adoption rates about SMEs are lower than Canada. And in some places, they're higher. So you have to compete on an educated workforce, and we'll talk skills training, competitive advantages you have, and that's one way to compete. The second way is, we are trying to build the best here in Canada. We've had per capita 2x the foreign direct investment in the last year that the United States has had. People want to do business here. We have new partnerships. Remember, we are going to do business with the United States. They are our biggest customer. And sovereignty is not solitude. But I will tell you, the opportunity and the geopolitical realignment that has happened has created a huge opportunity for countries like Canada, specifically Canada. This is why you saw our Sovereign Technology Alliance with Germany. And that's why you saw Cohere and Aleph Alpha partner to create an alternative to either the hyperscalers or the hegemons. And so there are ways to compete by, so what are the ways? One, you need optionality. And we are creating options so people have choice. And two, you have to compete by having control. And control means making sure that we have the infrastructure, that Canadians' data, privacy, and IP is controlled under Canadian law, not subject to the coercion of others. And that's, again, important. And then you can compete because you're going to create world-class products. I will just say, one seat over from you, Louis Tetu, who's an entrepreneur from Quebec City, who built a massive global company, Coveo, public company, in Quebec City, competing around the world. How do you compete? You build great companies, you have great talent, and you got to support them. So, you know, we feel we can compete. I will finally say, but we need the infrastructure. That's why we're building the supercomputer. Yeah, he had one more. Okay, I'll do shorter answers because this is. But we're building public infrastructure, like the $1 billion supercomputer, to make sure our researchers stay at the cutting edge.
Does Canada need its own foundation models for AI, which are mostly built in the US or China right now?
Actually, we have one. This is a great point, John. John's making one. There's only 4 countries in the world that have a foundation model on a large language model. There's lots of small models and there's lots of open systems. But I'm talking the US, everyone knows ChatGPT and Grok and Anthropic. China, France has Mistral, and Canada has Cohere. Okay? So can Canada compete on large language models? You better believe it. Now, Cohere needs to grow. One of the reasons that we had that Sovereign Technology Alliance is they partnered with Aleph Alpha, Germany's model, and that creates a scaled company that will grow access to the European market. They need that scale to grow. But absolutely we can, and we actually have the model that is doing it. And finally, the government's playing a role there. We have invested over $250 million to in Cohere to make sure they have the compute access, and we've just bought 1,400 of their licenses north for our government. The government plays a role on the demand side as well, to put our thumb on the scale to say we will champion our champions. But it's a great question, John.
Donnie.
All right.
I'll go like very quick.
Okay.
All right. Good morning, Minister. My name is Akshay Gupta. I'm founder of Bit Happier, a Canadian happiness news company where we share happiness news insight with Canadians. So, according to the latest World Happiness Report, Canada now stands at 25th in the world. Our happiness index is going down. And for youth, we have never been more disconnected and anxious. And
This doesn't sound very happy.
It doesn't.
I thought you were going to give me some happy news.
Yeah, so we are falling, our happiness index and numbers are falling. So, and according to CAMH, yes, the question is, 1 in 5 Canadians are feeling lonely. Everybody's talking about scaling AI and the impact. What steps your government is doing to understand the emotional and tangible impact for Canadians? We are talking about economic growth and prosperity, but what about the health impact on Canadians?
I'll just say briefly, we are looking at, like, we're open to the opportunities about social media and AI. We're candid about the concerns. There's concerns about alienation, bias, bullying, privacy, loneliness. There are some studies that say that there's a mitigating side to technology and it actually helps. There's others that say it's alienating. We are looking very carefully at age restrictions on social media, as Manitoba and Australia has done. We're looking at those kind of things with my colleague Mark Miller, the Minister of Heritage. We're looking at AI chatbots. I need not remind anyone in BC about the horrific tragedy of Tumbler Ridge. As a father of 2, you know, we are seized with making sure, and you know, our AI Safety Institute is already studying the safety protocols inside OpenAI. But we also have other things. We have a nature strategy, 30 by 30, 30% of our oceans and land protected by 2030, free park passes in urban parks as well to make sure people get outside. Social capital matters. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but I will say that, regulations on the downside effects of social media and tech, we're looking very closely at, and we're looking to make sure that people have lives and the social capital they need: education, affordable homes, access to nature.
Mr. Solomon, Hadani Ditmars for the National Post. You mentioned some of the positive.
Is this the happy news site as well? Come on, National Post.
Yeah. So you mentioned some of the positive effects of AI, the UBC student who invented the forest fire prevention technology. Yesterday, you talked about threats to democracy. I guess I'm interested, some of my colleagues have already sort of hinted at this in their questions, but what concrete actions can we take? Is the genie already out of the bottle? What are you planning on doing to mitigate the negative effects of AI? I'm thinking also as a member of the Writers' Union of Canada and a journalist and an author, copyright issues. Also, as you mentioned yesterday, if you could elaborate a little bit more about the threats to democracy and how, as a medium power, we can actually mitigate this.
Danny, thanks for the question. Let me say something about copyright first. I'll back. And again, I always say that we're going to be open to opportunities and can about concerns. So, we're not team pom-poms like, yay, AI is going to save everything, right? We're not team pitchfork, don't build data centers, stop. We're team pragmatic. That's the Carney government. We know this is happening. We're going to build, okay? We're going to do it. 2, we can control what we can control. There's lots of regulations that exist already. If you have a medical device and that's AI, you can't just implement it. There's a regulatory screen. You can't, if you invent the driverless car algorithm like Wabi has done, you can't just put it in a car. So we have regulatory structures that are working, just for the record. We will modernize our privacy laws and protect people very soon, against deep fakes. We've already got criminal legislation to criminalize the non-consensual sharing of sexualized imagery and synthetic sexualized imagery, because we think that's a form of violence towards women. That's already tabled legislation. We'll have more legislation on algorithmic transparency for automated decision systems, on right to deletion. We're looking very closely at that for deep fakes, so to protect citizens. So there's lots of ways that you can regulate and protect citizens, but we're not going to stifle innovation either. And you got to get that right. We need to innovate, but we need to protect. And so you'll see more legislation on that coming. That's a whole of government approach. Myself, the Justice Minister, and the Minister of Heritage and Culture.
Timeline on that, and what about copyright specifically?
Yeah, let me get you copyright. Hang in there. I'm coming to copyright. So I'm train still rolling. Copyright. This is a real big issue because artists they ask us a lot about what's called TDM, text and data mining. Right? Really big issue. Who owns it? What's the compensation and the compensatory? There's lawsuits around, so the marketplace is coming up with some determinations. I will say this, the principle of compensating people for their work, we absolutely agree with, we're looking closely at. Mark Miller, the Minister of Heritage and Culture, and I held a 2.5-day summit in Banff a month and a half ago with 300, all the writers' unions, songwriters, filmmakers, all of them. It was the first AI and culture summit, okay? 2.5 days we stayed to listen to that. We heard all the concerns. Very seized with this. We are setting up the first AI and culture advisory board. So we have regular input from the culture sector, from writers on copyright issues, and we will be soon coming forward with some recommendations. That the copyright issue is evolving. I know Mark Miller's kind of handling it, but we have an AI and copyright advisory board, and we're coming to ground on the idea of what is the best way to have compensation on that. So thanks, Adan.
Kyle Bax of CBC. About sovereign AI data centers, like the announcement yesterday with TELUS, those data centers that your government is going to be involved with, are they allowed to host foreign data? And if so, do those companies then have to comply with foreign regulators?
Yeah, we're not here to determine who their customer is. Yeah, they'll be allowed to host different data, but and again, we are moving forward to the MOU. The purpose for us is to make sure that there's an aspect of sovereign control for sovereign data. That's why it's called the AI, enabling sovereign AI data centers. So the question is, how do we back that? we absolutely want an element of that for sovereign control. I don't know if all 130 megawatts will all be Canadian. Like, we want these to be viable. They need customers. But they have to have an element of sovereign in there, very important. And so we're coming to ground on what that will be. How does the government support that? I mean, we haven't come to terms with the model yet. This is what they're negotiating. There's really three pitches that people give us when they're building a data center. Financing, help us finance it. If they can't, and we look at that, why can't the market do it? And what if we're going to finance it, what are the requirements for sovereign? Backstop. You know, do they want a backstop or do they want an offtake, right? So backstop meaning that they want to keep some workloads if they can't sell them, and offtake that the government itself actually buys the compute and the offtake for their own workloads. So there's lots of models, but the point is to make this fertilize the soil of sovereign ecosystems here.
Hello, Daryl Greer with the Canadian Press.
Wow, Daryl,
you know,
radio voice. Wow.
Yeah, radio face too.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, you know, like a lot of champagne corks are probably popping in billionaires' apocalypse bunkers whenever these hundreds of millions of dollars of public money are going into these projects. But how are you going to balance a public interest with the industry interest in growth and profit that doesn't necessarily put the public interest to the forefront?
Right. Let me recork that champagne, because I don't think these announcements are popping anyone's cork in a survival bunker. One, we just announced $300 million to support compute for Canadian innovators. And look, I spent 10 years as an entrepreneur. It ain't easy. These SMEs, go talk to them. They ain't living in survival bunkers drinking champagne. They're sweeping floors, and they're, well, like, I want, like, this is an important point here. I'm going to push back. What do you mean yet? We want entrepreneurs to be successful. We are not here to punish entrepreneurs. You take a bet, you want to build a company, you want to support people. Absolutely. They stay here, they have their IP here. If a government doesn't want entrepreneurs to stay in Canada, build in Canada, grow in Canada, create jobs here, what do we do it? So, no, hold on, let me finish, because you said yet. So these are young companies employing 10 people, 12 people. Hamid employs, I don't know his now. I just talked to a guy who started in 2018. He walked me up the stairs here, 32 people. Like, yeah, we want to support entrepreneurs. So they're not living, like, let's not demonize these folks. These are people that have advanced educations. They've decided to start a company. They're solving problems like medical breakthroughs, and like, these are good. This is a good thing. And we hope they're successful. And the data centers as the backbone, we want our companies to invest in Canada. And the question from CBC earlier was a good one. Let's make sure that it has a sovereign component to seed our ecosystem and benefit here. But I really think we've got to, your question's not wrong. We don't want to be investing public money for people in other countries and billionaires to pop corks in survival bunkers, which is the picture you painted, which is a compelling one. Our job is to help the Canadian economy build in Canada, grow in Canada, and solve the problems here in Canada.
Would you want a data center in your backyard? Would the entrepreneurs that you're supporting, would they want one in their backyard?
So I will say this, the data center that's here, this is an interesting question. The data center here has municipal support, provincial support, federal support. So we had city councilors here. Like, remember, these city councilors, they got to get elected. So they're making decisions, and we've done stakeholder management. Look, we are investing. I don't want to be confrontational. You're asking the right question, which is local. Yeah, but the answer is, if it's built right, yes. But just let me answer. If it's built right, the answer is yes. And we're building ports, and we're building buildings. Like any building, when you're renovating your house, you need to get a permit. And when you're building a building, you got to get local support. And, you know, there are local structures and local checks and balances to make sure that these things are done right. And like, one thing about this, we should make sure that we're not doing, we shouldn't know the answer before we ask the question. Let's ask the right questions, make sure it's done right, and build an innovative economy. The answer is we should never build any of these things. Should we never build roads? Should we never build factories? We have to build. We have to compete. But your question is the right one. let's ask tough questions and make sure we're doing it right. And we believe, as we're moving towards this MOU, we're asking those tough questions of TELUS and their partners, and we hope that they're doing it right. I think local people are asking the same questions about water ratepayers. We're pretty open about it. Like, we're not trying to hide anything, but we should do it openly. Good question.
Ben CBC, Radio-Canada, Beta-Kit, and then City.
Holy Mackinac.
Hi, Minister. Benjamin Lopez, Stevens, CBC Politics. You mentioned that the federal government is considering restrictions on social media and AI chatbots for children under 16. What factors is the federal government considering when it comes to whether or not it will impose those restrictions?
I never said the age, but that was a nice editorializing, but I like that. Good. That's the kind of thing I like, accepting the premise that we didn't actually set. Mark Miller's the one that's going to be in charge of the social media. I'm just going to say candidly, we're looking at we all know the harms of social media. I think AI chatbots pose a slightly different challenge. We want to innovate, we want to educate our kids, but so we're looking at the criteria. I mean, we're talking with our counterparts here in BC. And I met with Minister Glumac and Mr. Kellon yesterday about it, and I've had extensive consultation with them. I've spoken to Manitoba, Wab Canoe's government, who's done it. So we're looking really closely to make sure what works and how to do it. There's lots of questions about enforcement. There's lots of questions about age verification. There's lots of, these are tricky policies. You don't want to rush into it, but we got to do it right.
Are the movements from the provinces on these issues in any way changing the federal government's timeline to make a decision?
I think we want to make sure that we don't have a patchwork, and we want to harmonize, and we want to make sure that there's some coherence with people. So we're working really closely and, frankly, very productively with them.
We're going to go Radio-Canada and then...
Oui, Julien Latraverse, Radio-Canada, en français.
Si tu veux, mais c'est juste un peu lentement parce que je comprends, mais je parle comme une vache espagnole, mais je comprends presque tout.
On va essayer dans ce cas-là, merci. À quand on peut s'attendre à la publication de la stratégie nationale sur l'intelligence artificielle?
Je comprends pas. No, just kidding. Ça, c'est la question le plus commune. First of all, we're not waiting, as you can see by today's announcement. Nous n'entrons pas pour les introductions de la stratégie. We're not waiting. We are obviously yesterday's announcement about data centers and today's announcement about the computer access show. We're not waiting, so we're going to keep building. I'm happy to see that there's so much anticipation for a strategy. Again, it shows the appetite, and I will say it's coming. It's growing, and it's coming very, very soon. You'll see it soon. I'm not too concerned about the exact date. 60 days here or there. Was it 60 days ago, or is it coming in the next 40 days? It doesn't matter that much as long as we get it right on building. Bâtir les infrastructures de l'IA, c'est très important. Protéger les citoyens, les gens canadiens, c'est très important. Il y a beaucoup de tactiques là dans les stratégies pour protéger les Canadiens. Et aussi empowering avec les travailleurs et travailleuses to make sure that we have the skills. So we're getting it right. And it's, as you can tell, it's a big strategy, but good question. Thank you.
Et encore une fois en français, un peu pour développer ce que le collègue a mentionné par rapport à la construction de centres de données. Par exemple, avec l'annonce d'hier avec TELUS, la chef du Parti vert de la Colombie-Britannique a présenté ses doutes envers une déclaration plus écologique de ces centres de données-là. Elle mentionne par exemple que nous sommes dans un modèle où on construit en premier et ensuite on réglemente. Elle demande même un moratoire sur la construction de centres de données pour avoir des évaluations d'impact environnemental rigoureuses. Donc, je me demandais, qu'est-ce que vous faites, qu'est-ce que vous retirez en fait de ce doute, de ce scepticisme envers les projets de centres de données?
So, we are going to support the building of the data centers. We have seven criteria. I think it's 7 criteria that we make sure that and then we score them. We had 160 proposals on data centers that we've sifted through. This is the first one that we're moving forward because it hit a lot of that high score. We have seen places that have had real concerns about data centers around environmentalism and the regulations. In the United States, you've seen places that have rejected data centers because of ratepayers. In Alberta, there's been places that have townships that have said they're concerned about it. So we are looking at our criteria very closely to make sure that the ones that we support, remember, data centers are not all in the federal government's purview, right? There's provinces are the regulators, they can do it. But we're working closely to make sure the ones that we support have that criteria that they're responding to. Merci. Et désolé pour l'anglais. C'est plus facile de répondre en anglais. Merci.
Yeah, Jesse Cole for BetaKit. Just a point of clarification on this morning's announcement and yesterday's announcement regarding data centers. Will those data centers announced yesterday be used directly to power and offer this compute here at home?
BetaKit, right on the money. Excellent question. They're not tied together exactly, but the goal would be to have the sovereign data centers and building, as we build towards sovereign cloud and sovereign data centers, of course, be a way that the SMEs who are using compute would use the sovereign. I mean, this is the dual policy goal of these things, is to both give the access for the pure play innovation, and secondarily to make sure that they're using Canadian, which is why, you know, it's 50 cents on the dollar for any compute and 67 cents on the dollar if it's Canadian.
Hi, Jared Yeager with Sitka Media. So over the past 24 hours, I've seen a lot of backlash over not the fact that AI data centers are coming to Vancouver, just the particular locations, you know, prime real estate, one in downtown, one in a residential neighborhood. What would you say to those concerns? And in the future, do you envision, you know, this AI infrastructure competing with infrastructure that houses people and provides other services that we rely on?
Yeah, thanks for the question. First of all, we should be very open to real citizens' concerns. I haven't seen, you said a lot of backlash. I haven't seen that. Maybe you have?
Mostly on Twitter.
Okay, on Twitter. Okay. So, I mean, I'm not dismissing it though. Like, I don't know what I just don't want to respond to kind of like a phantom idea. But let's be clear, we should, as a matter of principal policy, take those concerns very seriously. And there are genuine concerns. And we've put these questions to the operators and the proponents on water usage. That's why the water usage was a top priority. On the power usage and how you're going to reuse the power to heat homes. You know, again, I'm not here to sell this because we are doing our diligence as we move towards an MOU. But in the proposal, the heating of 150 homes, if they're returning enough heat, their heat reuse, they think they can lower power costs for more affordable. Again, let's see. These are the kind of designs, sustainable by design, that we're very interested in pursuing. In terms of either or, you know, building isn't an either or, like it's an and. We have to build an economy that supports Canadians. I mean, Canadians want a good life. Affordability is a real issue. It's an expensive life. So, you know, we're not just doing one thing. Gregor Robertson, who's the minister here, former mayor, is the Minister of Housing. We have a $25 billion Build Canada Homes agency that is the first time since the Second World War the Canadian government is building affordable homes. With $1 billion with social medicine, so wraparound services homes. So you got to do that too. You got to do a bunch of things at once. It's not a, can you do this or this? You know, the federal government's got to respond, you know, on affordability. We have the groceries and food essentials. So for people who are eligible for that, you know, 22 million Canadian or 12 million Canadians will get, a family of four will get $1,850 back this year in June, like next month. They're going to see the first. So, you know, and that's automatic. So we got to help people who are struggling with food affordability. We got to make sure that we're lowering the cost of affordable housing. Does that mean we have to do it at the expense of our defense? No, we got to invest in our defense as well. So we got to do multiple things at once. And we believe strongly that building infrastructure, ports, bridges, roads, data centers is part of that. We got to do it right in consultation. And we've got to, and I'll just end with, you know, I say this a lot, but it matters. Technology moves at the speed of innovation, and citizens move at the speed of trust. And you got to move at the speed of trust. So you got to move with citizens. And so, you know, I really take your question. I'm not giving any advice as a former journalist. I wouldn't get all my sources from Twitter, but but it does give you the ambient noise out there. Like and jokes aside, it's a real concern. It's a real concern.
Minister, before we go, we have some of the companies here, SenseNet. Do you want to just give a quick shout out to maybe Hamid or someone from, do you want to just tell that story real quick?
Yeah, well, okay, SenseNet, where's Hamid? Come on up, just like, because people are so sick of me anyway. Why don't you just let Hamid, and why don't we do, and then SenseNet, do you guys want to come up? Yeah, sit, this is good.
There's only one chair, so you can take.
Oh, here, take mine. Take this. Good. No, I want the founders. This is good. Here, just Hamid, take this one, and just why don't you just give a quick brief on your companies, real quick, Josh, and maybe what the public access, the compute access will mean.
Okay, it's my first press conference, so I'm not that good. So we are trying to save the planet. And to be able to do that, we actually need to do a lots of analysis because we are monitoring like a very big area, like 300 million acres globally. To be able to do it with a person manually is impossible. So that's why we built AI to do that. And to process all those data, images, smoke, satellite data, we required massive amount of data processing, which this actually AI Compute Access Fund give us the best class AI processing tools, so we can do that and provide citizens, communities, enterprise, actual impact of AI. So that's what we did.
Awesome. Yep, my name is Josh. I'm one of the co-founders at Spare, and we're currently active in around 250 cities around the world. With our main goal of helping to provide public transportation services and ultimately make cities a better place to live. And so we work with public transit agencies like BC Transit here in BC and TransLink and many around the world to improve access for paratransit users and specialized transit users that have disabilities or can't use the conventional transit system, and actually routing those vehicles and making them more accessible for folks that need transit services and to get around the city. And so that's we're using AI actually a lot to help to make sure those routes are very efficient. We can maximize the productivity of those routes, and ultimately to also make the connection between those riders more seamless with the services we provide. So it's a huge an opportunity for us.
Excellent.
All right. Any questions for Hamid or Josh before we wrap? Yeah.
Thank you so much, Hamid. Is your company focused on the application layer, or you develop some models, some new ones? I'm just curious because based on the minister, speech yesterday, we realized that there are huge opportunities for companies working on model development as well.
Yeah,
so I'm curious to know.
We did both. We have more than 30 patents globally. So our system is like very unique. There is no other company on a global scale do what we do. And we have different layers of AI. We have physical AI, edge AI, and we have AI in the application layer. So we integrate everything with AI again to process the data. And even user interface is based on AI. So we were developing AI way before ChatGPT. So foundation of our system is like graphical neural network based, which is a very unique thing. But after that, we develop and use the cutting edge technology, and we have our own model as well.
Amazing. So we should expect more and more companies developing models for sustainability and environment as well.
Exactly.
In Canada, and this is the age of Canada.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because I think the focus is like clean tech, climate resiliency, and in Canada we see that every day. Like every year you see the smoke everywhere. So that's like impacted every single citizen across the Canada. So that's why people think about the problem, how they can try to solve. And I'm glad to see a lot of companies actually trying to do that. And I'm glad actually the government is seeing that opportunity and helping that as well. So that's positive.
I love what you do. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
All right, thanks everyone. We're going to wrap it up. We do have some of the other companies here. Just put up your hand. There was 9 companies from British Columbia that received some funding through the Computer Access Fund. So if any media want to have a chat with them, they all have great stories about the work that they're doing, just like Josh and Hamid. All right, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Pleasure meeting you.